Yeah, so like Tom said, we are like onboarding a lot of new people at the moment. We're recruiting quite a lot. So this session is basically a short version of the onboarding I do for new Grafana team members. So even if you've been using Grafana for like years, there are like huge sections of it you probably have never seen or touched or used. I know that was the case for me. So I was there from the very, very start when Torkel built Grafana. I was the first team to use it. But when I started working at Grafana Labs, I discovered like features that got like added over those 2 years that I didn't even know existed. So some of this stuff I hope that you already know and use, and maybe some of it will be new. So I'm going to start with something which is very basic. So I should mention that I'm going to use the test data sources built into Grafana. It's like very useful for testing things like this. You can, in this case, I'm going to choose CSV values. And what we're going to do is going to simulate what happens when you have a gap in your data. So I'm going to take out the 90 there and replace it with null. And you see then there's a gap in my data. And one important thing to know is that on the visualization tab, you have this null value field. And this is actually quite a hard decision to choose that this is null, because this can be very confusing sometimes when you come into a graph and you don't see anything. There are points there, but the lines aren't connected. So for beginners, it would be easier if we just chose this value here, connected. And then you would say, oh, okay, there's a bit of a gap in my points there, but there is actually data there. It's not hidden. The reason why we chose null is that this could be dangerous if we had connected as the default. If you were monitoring, I don't know, like CPU usage, and a gap means that basically, something crashed or is not working, or CPU is at 100%. So for monitoring, it's like this default has to be this way. It would be dangerous if people had to change this to null when they were monitoring something that was critical. Okay. Jump back. So the next thing I want to show is we just add, actually take that out, back to 90. Add another query, so we have two time series. And I want to show series overrides. So you have all these options up the top where you can change how things look. But series override is like another level where you can do some super advanced things. And this can be like either an alias. I can choose like my A series or my B series, or it could be like a RegX. I could have like, for both, I could have like A or B. So in this case, I just actually want the A series. There are also some options in these series overrides that aren't anywhere else. So you could have like dashes. You can like change the color. It's a new color picker. Or you could just change the points. I could just for one line, say the B series, say that I want to turn off the lines there. I want to have points true instead. But there are some other things here as well that are very cool. If we add a third series, and actually just remove these. You can do things like fill down to the series below. So instead of having line fill going all the way down to the bottom, I could just say, oh, I'm in fill below to the B series. Just show the fill between them. You can do things as well. If I want to hide something from the legend, I could take the B series and say I don't want it in the I can't spell legend false. I can assign things to the right y-axis. So I could say this should only be on the say y-axis 2. You can mirror data. So if I have two series and I want to mirror one underneath it, you can do like a negative transform, negative y, which can be useful if you want to show like compare two series like one above and one below. So very useful. This is like if you want to make like something super cool and maybe have like a bunch of series which are normal line graphs and you want to show the average, you can do that with dashes or dots, and it's just another way to take your graphs to the next level. Now remove all these. As a new feature in, I think came in, I was in 6.0 or was it 5.4? I can't remember, it's quite new, where you can add time regions. And this is, you maybe want to highlight like what business hours are, you don't really care about, let's say, Saturday and Sunday. So take like Monday to Friday. If I zoom out now to the, say, last 30 days, I don't know if you can see that, just put the line on, change the color, something like blue. And you see that Monday to Friday is highlighted. Yes, and talking about y-axis, I'm not sure everyone knows this, but there is a little picker, so you can do this not just through series overrides, but I can, in the color picker menu, there's actually a y-axis menu there, and I can use the y-axis. And there's even an align option here if you want to align the y-axis, like this, so they both start on 0. We jump back. So in 6.0, this has moved around a bit. So the relative time and time shift settings are now under the metrics. So relative time is actually something uses this little query language that exists for time ranges. And this actually comes from Kibana. So Grafana was originally a fork of Kibana 3. I'm not sure if it's still in Kibana. I think it could be gone. But they create this little little language for date time ranges. So this is like today so far, and you can first pick a range that you want here. Say this day so far, and I can use this to set relative time. And relative time means that just this panel has this time. So if I went back and created like another panel. And change this, say, the last hour, then this panel at the top it shows the last hour, while this one shows today so far. And you can do things like time shifting as well. I could have like today so far, minus 1 hour, things like that. Another thing I want to point out with there's so much in the graph panel, it's so dense. So I think in 6.1 or 2 we'll start breaking it up into sort of smaller panels, because now it's very easy to switch visualization. So I can go from a graph panel to a table panel quite easily. So I think we'll split these out. But at the moment, there is an option here for mode. And this is actually nearly like 3 different panels in one. So you have the series, which is it doesn't have like time on the x-axis, and it has a histogram, which is like also like a different panel. So I think that's about as much as I'm going to say about the graph panels. Anything I missed there? I don't think so. Another feature, I don't know if people know it, but that Grafana has built-in annotations. So you can have annotations from a data source. So say from Influx or Elasticsearch, like an outage, and you would do a query. But there are actually some Grafana, you can save them in the Grafana database if you want to. And you do that by using Control-Click. So this creates an annotation there. I could say outage, and I give it a tag if I want, the outage tag. And it's there. I can also do ranges. So if I control and drag, I can do a range. I want to show this was a longer outage. So I see this at the moment, it's been shown on one panel. You can change this. So in the settings menu, you'll see there's a line there sort of grayed out for the built-in annotations. At the moment it's hidden, we can show it. And I can choose like to filter it in different ways. So I could like filter by tags, and I could say outage. Oh no, this one's still a histogram. Change this back. And remove the series, And now if I go back to my dashboard, you see that it will be like for every panel. So you can choose if you want to show like per panel or for all the panels on the dashboard. And you can have this like switch up here where you can like, turn it off and show it if you want to. And you can add like more if you want. You can have multiple of these with different tags. So I could add like another one. So we're just going to add just show how you would do it if we were doing for a data source. I'm just going to use the test database here. This is my test DB annotations. And you see it has, and you could turn those on and off. I could just show these or just show the other ones. So a handy feature if you've never seen it before. Right now, I think we will turn off annotations. I'm going to jump into template variables. Actually, I think we'll start by creating a new panel. And here I'm going to leave testDB and go over to start using Prometheus. We'll take a counter request. I should start with a rate. It's easier. Just do a very simple query, a bit of fake data. And I need whatever. So simple query. And then maybe obviously I want to template this. I have like lots of time series here. So we will do say where server. Web server 1. Oop, am I doing wrong there? Ugh, in the wrong place. What am I doing wrong here? Carl. Oh, should I zoom in a bit? Sorry, should. One what? Oh, yeah. Okay. So let's create a simple type of variable. We want to be able to choose server through a variable. So there are a couple of different types here. So one thing to be aware of here, that constant is not what you think it is. If you want to do like hard-coded values, then you should use custom. So if you want to have, say, like web server 01 and web server 02. This is not how you would do it, just to show. We create a. Sometimes it's useful to be able to hard code things. You just have one or two things you want to choose between, and we can use that here. So this is all very simple. I'm sure that all of you have done this before. So we're going to take it up a level in a minute. And now I should be able to choose web server 1 and web server 2 and switch between them. The first thing to know is this is maybe a little bit Prometheus specific, but basically all data sources have some concept of using multivariables, and it's a bit different for different data sources. So in Prometheus, you use RegX if you're going to have multiple values in one query. In SQL, it would be comma separated, for example, and you would use in. And this can be like quite tricky. So as soon as you have like a multi-value include all option, if we go back now, I've broken my query. If I choose web server 1 and 2, it breaks. And the reason is if I was to look at the network panel here, refresh my query, the headers, you'll see if I don't know, is this visible? You can see down here it says server equal to your web server 01 and then with a bar between it. And obviously there is no server called that, so you have to basically change the syntax, and you have to do something in pretty much every language to make this work. So in, say, if it was SQL just for something totally different, you would use in. And here we have to basically say this is a regex expression, and then it starts working. So this syntax for template variables has another syntax. It has two other syntaxes, but they have one here we can show. This is basically the same as this. So regex. So I could actually change this and say, in this case, I know some special case, I actually want to have it comma separated. This will break my query, but we can show it again in Network Inspector. That if you see here, down here, is basically a comma here instead. So you can control the formatting. It can be very useful in some sort of edge cases. Things like if you want, do you want them quotes around them or not, or quotes and commas? There's a whole bunch of options, and you can find that in the docs how to do that. So we go back. So another feature that is really useful, and I know that lots of people don't use it because it's very scary, is that in we go to the other one. Yeah, we change this to how we actually would do it. So we're doing a query instead of a custom. So we're going to use like how you actually do it in Prometheus. And you see it has a regex field under here, so you can actually filter or change the values using regex. So if we take label values server, and you can see we get the list of servers here. With regex, I could say, oh, I don't want the backend servers. I only want web servers. So I'll just say take things that start with oops, wrong one. Things that start with web, and this filters. You can also use capturing. So I could say, oh, I want to strip off like the web part. I only want server 01, 02, 03. So you can do some things, and you can actually take this even further. So just to show like a little trick and finish here with something that's a little trick in. So if we start with up, and this is like servers that are instances that are up, but you can't use the values down here in a query. It's got all this stuff that I don't want. So with regex, we start off and see if I can remember this. If we take dot star, say instance equal to, let's see. And usually you have to try and build them up. You just can't just build them in one go. So this should return the last half. Then you want to change this and say that what I only want the bit like after the second quote. And this might look a bit complicated, but you don't have to worry. It's actually in the docs, this example. And you see now I can use the instances, and I can update that. Oh, I can change my server name to be instance. And choose something new. Do wrong. Take multivariable as well. And I have a list of instances that I can use. And these instances are up, so if there was one that was down, then it wouldn't be in this list. So you can do super complicated things with template variables and a little bit of regex. I know it's a bit scary, but usually you can find someone else who's done it before. And as well, I want to say that those tricks and tips with series overrides, there is a post on the community site that Torkel has written, where he shows how to do like the really cool things with, say, points or stack grouping and using transform negative, as well as this really cool fill below too, which is really hard to actually get look like that unless you have data that really does look like this. where yeah, you can do some like really cool visualizations. So all that stuff is there. And that's, I hope that you learned something. This is basically what we try to show to all new Grafana employees, so they can answer questions on the community site and help users. Thank you very much. Are there any questions? I think I have a little bit of time for questions. Oh, you want a microphone? Oh, I can read it. Could you please elaborate on the custom all option for Prometheus? I don't know, actually, I don't know if I have anything special to say about the custom all. Do you, Carl, would you, anything you would say about that? So the custom all option is in variables, is basically instead of, if you choose all and blank as auto, and I choose all, it will build up this huge regex. If I had 100 values here, that would actually be, the value 1, value 2, value 3, value 4 with a bar between them. It can be absolutely huge. And if you're unlucky, you can actually reach the limit of how much HTTP request can send in one query, and it will crash. So you could put in a star, for example, something like that. I think that would work. You can try. No, it didn't. I'm not sure what's a good custom value for. Yeah, I know for other ones that you could do like something clever there. Or would dot star work? I don't know. Yeah, but I think Prometheus already has this sorted out. As I say, I don't think it actually does that. It's a bit smarter, but some of the other data sources aren't that smart, and then this custom all value can be very useful. Okay, is David here? I think he's going to take over. Oh, there's more questions? Carl, was there another question? Yep. Yep. Oh, yep, good tip. So my example was maybe unnecessarily complex. Someone is saying that you can just do label values up and oh yeah, server. That would work as well. I'll take away the RegX. So you don't. Oh, why did that not work? Oh, okay. Well, oh, instance. Sorry, that's right. Yeah. Oh, there you go. So it's an easier way to do in Prometheus, but yeah, I think basically the principle behind the trick is still, it can be still very useful in some data sources. Under variables, what is the difference in having type as query and then having to select the data source and having type as data source? So the data source type here for queries is a totally different one. It's actually when you want to choose, say I only have one Prometheus data source, but maybe if I had 5, then I could have like a drop down and say, oh, I want to, Prometheus for cluster 1, Prometheus for cluster 2, Prometheus for cluster 3. And it's a way of templating your dashboard to work with multiple data sources. Very useful, especially if you're exporting dashboards and sharing them with people. Then you should have like a data source template variable. Makes your dashboard much more flexible. The next question is it a bug or feature to have to escape underscores preceding variables? That's a good question. Is it a bug or I don't know, we can say maybe a feature, otherwise you probably would have fixed it by now. Okay, thank you very much.